Welcome back, everybody. Here's a quick look at my next project. This is another Sansui receiver, the G-4700, and I've already kind of taken this one apart a little bit, so won't get to see it together until it's done. But this one, this one's going to be a major project. I'm probably going to be working on this for a while. I got this, was told it was broken, and I decided to turn it on. I even had a dim bulb tester, believe it or not, and I turned it on. I already got parts removed here, and I turned it on, and this resistor down right here started on fire. There was no actual flame. It was smoking a little bit. The fuse never blew, which I thought was very odd. But either way, that resistor was very much flaming. And then I turned it off. So I know that this channel has two shorted output transistors. Emitter tests okay, and these are hard to find. These 0.15 dual emitters, you can find 0.22, 0.33, and 0.47 very easily, but the 0.15 times 2 is very hard to find. So actually what I've done is I've ordered new caps, transistors for in here, and the outputs. The heatsink is off. The heatsink is over here. That's where they were. And I'm actually going to pull this whole board out and work on it outside of the receiver, and then when I'm done, put it back in. So that's my project. Also, the display does not work. I'm not sure if it's this chip. I know these go bad. This has a digital display that you cannot see because it is not on. But there is a digital area right here. And the receiver is very dusty, and among other things. So that's the current project for right now. Well, here's the power amp board, power supply, and preamp board pulled out of the receiver. Actually, it's disgusting. I cleaned off a small section here. You can see what it's supposed to look like, but it's just disgusting. There's so many burnt and grody and corroded components on here. Well, here's the amp section of the circuit board with everything removed, and it seemed like a lot of work, but I'm glad I did it because I actually found some more damage back in this area. Where is it? Back in this area by D1 that I didn't see before. And if you've looked around online, you've probably seen something about Sansui glue. People talking about service where they've gotten rid of that glue out of their amp or things like that. And basically this glue is kind of corrosive in a way. It eats away at metal leads of components. In this case, there was a diode right here that when I touched it, it actually fell apart. I wasn't planning on replacing that diode, but now I am because it's broken. But I also cleaned up the glue around these. There's a little bit still around the main caps. I'm not going to take these out. It's way too much work. The leads are folded over. The whole circuit board is going to come apart if I try and take them out. They're actually fine. I tested them. They're fine. These main filter caps. So those are staying. But everything else is out. So that's where we are. Time to start loading up the board again. This resistor here, which as you can see is quite burnt, was actually smoking when I originally turned on the unit on dim bulb test. The dim bulb did not show a short, but for some reason this resistor was smoking, and as you can see it's very burnt. Now I know from the schematic that this is a 150 ohm resistor, half watt, and it is a half watt, I can tell. But despite the fact that it was burning, it's reading 145.7 ohms, believe it or not. Just kind of thought I'd point that out there. So now I've got the board back in the receiver, and I've actually hooked up on channel A my scope, and on channel B I actually have the speakers. Now I would never recommend hooking up speakers normally, but I did actually power this on. I was kind of working on it and forgot to make an update video, so I kind of stopped here and started the video. But basically I put this board back in. As you can see, it's done there, and I've got the output transistors mounted. There they are. And I discovered on the right channel that the offset was so wildly varying, the DC offset, and I came back up to the front here, and there are two small gray, they say K129A in the video. Those are dual FETs. They are responsible for the very entry stage of the power amp. There is actually not much of a preamp on this thing whatsoever. It's mostly passive, and the first active components the signal reaches are actually those dual FETs, which is basically part of the power amp. So it's very simple up here, but you got those two, and then this bundle of wires that carries it back to here, if I can get that to show, and then it distributes it around the power amp stage. But one of these was actually failed, and these are impossible to get, so I was very worried. But I had a friend who managed to have one. Actually gave me two, but I only needed the one. And I replaced it, and I was able to adjust the DC offset and everything else correctly. Those two pots you see, the blue ones there, those for DC offset. And then the two back here, that are probably best if I didn't shine the light so directly, are for the biasing, one on each channel there. Actually sounds really good. So you'll probably notice, if you're familiar with this series of receivers, that the power meters are not operating, and that is on purpose. I actually took out a link to that section of the circuitry to make sure the amp was running properly before I reconnected the power meters. So I'm going to go ahead and resolder that, link it back in, and power up with that, just to make sure those are working as well. So I've got the tuner board on here. I recapped it, and I also recapped this the digital display board here, so the tuner board has been recapped as well. Still need to do a little bit of cleaning in there, but the recapping has been done. So I just wanted to show you guys the tuner on this thing is pretty neat now that I got it working. The bulb is out because it was down near the table and it was getting kind of warm there. So see, the tuner kind of counts down. I'll turn it down a little bit. So I'm actually going to spin this so you can see it better. So there's how the tuner looks, and it's actually pretty neat. It's got a quartz lock and then stereo there to turn off stereo, and it'll still quartz lock for you, so that's kind of neat. I can just, it locks in pretty nicely. So then you got AM as well. I don't get much AM down here in the basement, but actually matches up pretty well with the dial pointer too. Now, I wanted to point this out too. I don't know if you can really see it in the video. It's got two RCA jacks on the front. Now, originally they both looked like this. They were really corroded looking, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, if I had to replace them. But I actually started cleaning, and actually it looks almost as good as new. The RCA jack there. I'm using this stuff, this Barkeeper's Friend. It's made for metal, and it actually is doing a remarkably good job on this chrome. So I've cleaned this jack really well, so you can see how shiny and nice looking it is. And then I still got to do this other one. It's pretty dull, but give a good connection and look real nice, because you can see them from the front panel. You see them right out there, sitting there at the front panel. So do that, and there's a lot of cleaning I still need to do on this thing, and then I need to do the LED upgrade for the front panel. Well, what I've got here is I've got the bottom panel for this receiver. This is kind of the cleanup phase of the reassembly. Now, this thing was just a bucket of rust, this bottom panel, but it hadn't really eaten into the main surface. It was more like a coating. Maybe something got sprayed near it or something like that. But anyway, I've taken it and I've really scrubbed the snot out of it, and I'd have to say it looks pretty good. I've taken the feet off, make it a lot easier to work on, but it actually looks pretty good. This is the bottom of the receiver. Cleaned out all the vent holes and everything, and gave it a good scrub. One of the things about doing a restoration on one of these receivers is a lot of times the job you've done only goes as far as the visuals in many cases. If you got a piece of junk looking receiver, even if you've done a wonderful restoration inside, really when people look at it, they're gonna just see a piece of junk. So it's kind of good to try and clean it up if you can. I know there's sometimes rust that you really can't get off, or other cosmetic factors, and if you're keeping the receiver for yourself, really the maintenance you're doing inside is probably more what counts. I believe I am keeping this one for me. This is probably going to go with the computer desk. I have another one there that needs some attention, so I'll probably finish this one up and put it there at the computer for a while I work on the other one. And then I'll make a decision when I'm done with both of them which one I want to keep. So what I'm working on right now is the LED upgrade for the front panel, which is actually complete here. I've removed the bulb, and it's very hard to see. I've got two small LEDs there lighting it up now. The best place I found for LEDs that work especially well in these vintage units is actually Christmas lights is the best place. Some of the newer warm white Christmas lights have LEDs that actually match the color of incandescent stuff pretty well. And it actually looks exactly the same as the bulb in here, but I know it's going to last infinitely longer, or at least a while longer, hopefully. So the dial lighting is actually pretty even at this point. It's not too bad. So here it is with the faceplate on, all cleaned up. I'm actually still trying to decide if I want to try and add another light on the right side for the dial face, because it only came with one, but for some reason the left side does look quite a bit brighter than the right side, and it just I think it would look better if I try to put another one in there. So I might try and do that, but other than that, it's reassembled the front anyway. I still got some cleaning to do in the back, but works really nice. I really like it. Really sounds quite a bit better than it ought to for being the lowest model of the series. And it's got a handy jacks on the front of RCA jacks. You can hook up just about anything. You got a little splitter cable. You can hook up your iPod or you know, even your phone. You could do, you know, something like that. So there's a lot of features on here that are pretty neat. After installing that to replace the original bulb, I kind of decided that the display still looked very uneven. All the light was over on the left, and I actually discovered that it would be really easy to add another light on this side, which I have done here now. It's another set of the same. It's just mocked up right now with alligator clips in space, but I've added another LED on this end of the display, and I've found that it actually evens out the brightness quite a bit. It actually looks pretty even across the entire thing, and it looks great, I think. So I'm gonna leave it like that, but just thought I'd throw that in there, try and even out this display. I never really liked displays that put a bulb on the one end, because as good as the plastic may be, the light never diffuses perfectly across the entire thing, and you always see a gradient. So in this case now, very, very slightly, you can tell it's dimmer in the center versus the edges, but I think it looks pretty even across. Significantly better than it used to. You can see when I turn it on and off here. It's very even across the display. So that's how I'm going to leave it. I'll tidy up the wiring and put some clips in there and everything to make it real nice and neat. But that's how I'm going to leave it for now. So there's the final receiver. Got the lights in, case is all together. It's not too bad looking. Well, that part is like shiny over there for some reason. It's good in shape. Got AM, FM, phono, auxiliary. It's a pretty neat system. I'm really happy with it. But there it is, all done. I'm very happy with it.